Jihad has come to America.
It constitutes the most devastating series of terrorist attacks in history.
The only deen Allah accepts is Al-Islam. And whoever seeks any other deen apart from Islam will never be accepted.
Allahu Akbar!
We stand together to win the war against terrorism.
But you too will make your destruction!
Does Islam brainwash its children to become bloodthirsty murderers by glorifying violence and hatred? Or are they just extremist cases that are inconsistent with what Islam teaches? Why do we see such cases to begin with? Here to discuss with us tonight, we have four special guests. I'd like to welcome, eventually we'll have online, Dr. Mordecai Kadar, an expert on Islamic studies. We're waiting actually to make connection with him, and a professor at the Bar Ilam University. He joins us, eventually will join us live here all the way from Israel. Also with us is, all the way from Australia, we have Muslim apologist Abdullah Kunda. Thank you for joining us this evening. And I hope I didn't mispronounce your name. I apologize if I do.
That's fine.
Good. I'll give you a chance. We'll all have a chance to speak here in just a minute. And then we're going to welcome back the two more frequent guests we have on our program, both ex-terrorists and both currently authors. That is Kamal Salim and Walid Shubat. Thank you so much for joining us, gentlemen. And we're looking forward to getting to the program tonight. I am Chris. Our regular host, Summer, is out tonight, and I'm actually filling in for Summer, so hopefully I'll fill in okay for her. We have an exciting evening for you here tonight. We actually have an extended show. We're going to be going in for 2 hours. Typically, we have a 90-minute program, but tonight it's a 2-hour program. And as you know, we are in our 2-week Jesus or Muhammad marathon, so we'll be here for 2 hours, and we will continue on with our unique programming throughout the rest of the week and into this weekend. So stay tuned at ABN by watching, if you are now, on our website, which is www.abnsat.com. And be ready to give us a call tonight as well. Eventually, we'll be taking callers. And that number, as you may know already, is 248-416-1300. Our topic of the evening is the innocent child to jihad warrior. The innocent child to jihad warrior, where we will take a look at how children are indoctrinated with things in Islam that could potentially lead them to acts of violence against non-believers. So we're going to just get right into the program tonight. Frankly, this is a learning experience for me, and as I ask these questions, that I'm going to probably represent a lot of, let's say, Americans in this country that don't know a lot about jihad, and hopefully by the end of the night we'll have a better understanding of what this is and how children get involved, obviously at a young age, and we'll eventually be showing some videos to give some examples of what we've seen that happens. All it has been happening for a number of decades, and we're going to get into that a little bit later. But I'll start out with Kamal. I'd like to actually, if I could ask you a question, and thank you for joining us tonight. It's good to see you gentlemen here. We're excited to start off. Let me ask you a question. We kind of talked about it briefly earlier before we started on the air. Could you tell me what, if I say this right, Shahada, S-H-A-H-A-D-A, could you describe what that is and what is its meaning in the world of Islam?
Walid, why don't you answer this? You're better at this.
Well, Shahada simply means to testify, to witness.
Okay.
From Shahada Yashhadu. But there is also istishhad. Istishhad is to basically to witness for Islam in the concept of martyrdom or dying for the cause of Allah. And it goes back also to the Quran. وَلَا تَحْسَبَنَّ الَّذِينَ قُتِلُوا فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ أَمْوَاتٌ بَلْ أَحْيَاءٌ عِنْدَ رَبِّهِمْ يُرْزَقُونَ. Do not think that the ones who die in the cause of Allah, that is in jihad, are dead but are alive with Allah receiving their blessings. So shaheed is to die for the cause of Allah, to be a testimony for Islam. We have Christian testimony, basically also in Christianity, you have the idea of being killed for the cause of Christ, not fighting. In Islam, it's quite different. It's fighting and dying through the fighting, whether aggression or whether self-defense. So Islam has it in both ways. In Christianity, it's only in one aspect, and that is in dying as lambs go to the slaughter. In other words, being martyred for the cause of Christ.
That is a key difference, absolutely. What would you say is an example of a, let's say not the same thing, but a Christian dying for the faith? Walid or Kamal, what would be an example of that? Whether it's happening in current day or even in the biblical times.
Well, you go to the Bible, it's very simple, and many of the apostles of Christ have given their life for Christ and have died under the Roman persecution and throughout the persecution in ancient history, in which Christians gave their life for the cause of Christ. So we have many examples today in Indonesia too. Indonesia and Egypt under the Coptic persecution against Copts and Christian minorities. The Assyrians in Iraq are heavily persecuted currently, since now the system has changed hands, and we have persecution all throughout the Orient. So there has been more martyrdom in Christianity today than in the entire centuries combined, which is very rarely spoken about, sadly. And none of it, there hasn't been any single martyrdom that I know of from the Christian perspective which was in an aggressive warfare. It was always they live as minorities in these Muslim heavy Muslim population communities, and they are persecuted in churches. Churches are being burned, and killing of women and children, even raping of women. So we have a heavy persecution currently that's existing worldwide. That's coming predominantly from Muslim countries.
Okay. At what age does a child? This might be kind of a loaded question here, but at what age does a child in an Islamic family, in a Muslim family, at what point do they start to teach them these beliefs about Islam? Kamal, can you address that?
Yes. In my situation, I'll speak from my experience, what happened to me. I was born into this situation, and I was indoctrinated by my mother and my father. It was right there on the kitchen table, tabli, where we sat down, we ate, we had dinner, and this is also where we had madrasa. In Islam, many of the children are taught, many, conservative Islamic, people who practice Islam, they read the Quran by the time they're 10 years old. They read the Quran 3 times in order to remember it by heart. So therefore, we were learning, we didn't have a whole lot in our home TV or anything, but we studied Futuhat al-Islamiyya. We studied, the Hadith by Bukhari or Muslim or Tabari. We studied a lot of al-Fiqh. We studied, many different things. And my favorite was, Futuhat al-Islamiyya, about how Muhammad, the Prophet of Islam, conquered his enemy and how he deceived them in the battlefield, and he killed them afterward and what so have you. So I was taught by my mother, and my mother said, my child, if you kill a Jew, your hand will light up before the throne of Allah, and the host of heaven will celebrate your killing, that you are, a Jew murderer. So therefore, I was meditating truly as a child to kill a Jew someday. I was 4 years old. That's what I remember when it started, 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 and 8. And by the time I was growing into my home and learning from the Quran what the Quran said and what the Hadith commended, which is the biography and the saying and the life of Muhammad, the Prophet of Islam. What happened is I was fully, committed. As my mom said, one day you will die for the sake of Allah because you are pure at heart. So therefore, I was going in that direction. And from there, I graduated into the Muslim Brotherhood in our mosques, which is filled and penetrated all our mosques in Lebanon. And I was growing up with the Muslim Brotherhood, and I was learning what is our commandment, what we're supposed to do when we grow older. How do we fulfill Islamization? How do we bring about Ummah? How do we bring to Dar al-Harb, Dar al-Salam? How we penetrate the Western civilization? We were learning over there in a specific studies, which is we set every day for about an hour and a half, and we sat, there, and there's a teachers, and we had a chalkboard, we had everything, and we were learning on everything. Was happening in a multitude of mosques. But therefore, thereafter, I graduated from the Muslim Brotherhood, where the whole group, Muslim Brotherhood, joined the PLO, and we became at that time, which is, they used to be called Fatah, which is another name from the Quran, from the Holy Quran, came from the surah. It says, "Inna fatahna lakum fathan mubina," which is, we're giving you the victory to conquer. So therefore, Fatah, became the PLO, and I was a child soldier with them. And I went on many missions with them, from Israel to the Civil War in Lebanon to what so have you. And finally came to the United States of America to fulfill the purpose. And some of my colleagues went to Australia, and some went to England. And today, until 1985, I was a member of both organizations, and we're communicating from all different states, whether Australia, whether England, whether Europe. We're, committed to our call.
So obviously, from a very early age, you were trained and you followed that belief, and to obviously to your adulthood. And I know that's an exciting story, and I've personally have heard it before, and I'd love to give you the opportunity later to even talk about it a little more in depth. Thank you, Kamal, for sharing. And I'd like to give our patient Muslim apologist, Abdullah Kunda, an opportunity to respond. Not so much respond, but just maybe make a comment, if you would. At what age, I don't know if you were raised in Australia, but at what age in your upbringing were you introduced to Islam or brought up or trained? What is your experience to the point even where you are now, right, as an adult? I don't know if you're
Well, Chris, that's a very good question. I'm just getting a little bit of a delay. Let me just see if I can correct that for you. Pardon me. Okay, I think I'm all set now. It is a very good question. I think if I could just briefly comment on a couple of the tidbits of Walid and Kamal, and also like to thank them very much for their very detailed contributions. I think that Walid has very conveniently given us a specific definition of what a martyr is, what a shaheed is. Indeed, I think he's ignored the saying of the Prophet ﷺ, where he says that all people that drown, that die drowning, will be martyrs, will be shaheed, shuhada, and it's not actually linked specifically to jihad or to war. So we certainly need to at least acknowledge that martyrdom in Islam is not just about war. And indeed, he also gave us a very convenient English translation of the ayah that he quoted. It says, "Those that go off in the path of God." Now, yes, we can interpret this to specifically mean war, but it says literally the path of God, and we must be willing to at least give our English viewers that perhaps don't understand the verse specifically the opportunity to look at things a little bit more objectively. Also, I think it's important that we recognise that while Kamal's testimony is certainly very compelling, and indeed I found the couple of minutes that I got to listen to of it very, very compelling, he is referring to specific groups more so than he's referring to religious doctrine. In fact, there wasn't a specific quote from the Quran. He did make allusions to the biography of the Prophet ﷺ, but indeed the rest of what he referred to was about the Ikhwan al-Muslimin and the Fatah movement, and indeed Muslims would not be Islam itself as a religion does not need to be held accountable for what these groups specifically do. Having said that, if we look at Islamic law specifically, well, we know that I believe it's from the age of around about 16 that an individual could be conscripted to the defence forces under Islamic law. Obviously, this doesn't happen anymore because Islamic law isn't instituted in any country in the world, and indeed we'd probably be looking at older ages for that anyway, given the general rules put by modern armies. If we want to consider warfare itself, if we want to consider the concept of jihad, well, indeed we have different levels and different category